Welcome to another episode of Split Take Podcast with your hosts, Jacob and Chandler. Today is a special, well, is it? Do we want to do? What do we want to do?
I don't know. We could just go rapid fire with movies we've watched and then get into Death of Stalin.
Let's go rapid fire. I think that'd be good.
Okay, rapid fire. It's funny because a lot of the movies I've watched this cycle I've already seen before, so there's no real point in bringing them up. I only have a few to bring up. I watched for the first time. I watched Perfect Blue,
Which you got on Blu-ray.
I did. I got on a Perfect Blu-ray.
Did you like it?
I did. I don't know how much I liked it because I'm not sure what I watched.
Interesting.
I've read a bunch of different theories and none of them seem right to me. And there's something beautiful about that, but it's very much a trippy experience. Very well animated. People say the score is very good. I didn't notice that. I didn't think it was a bad score. I just didn't notice.
It's not a great analogy, but I always think of Perfect Blue as Japanese Mulholland Drive.
No, I agree. I agree to an extent. There's a lot of a lot to do with like performance and this world of entertainment and like the illusion of acting and filming and stuff like that. It's one of those things that I feel like I can't really come to an opinion on it after a first viewing. But of the few movies I've seen this year, it is currently at the top of my first watches of 2021 ranked.
Interesting. Here's my question for you. Last time you did for 2020, when you did first time viewings, did you put all of your first time viewings on that list? Like all of them?
Literally all of them.
Oh, wow.
Literally all of them.
Okay. This year I'm going to try to do that.
It's it's easy. Just as soon as you're done with a movie, add it to the list, and then at the end of the week, just sort of reorganize the list.
Yes. The issue is not so much now, but like August, when the list is over 100 movies long.
Yeah.
And it gets hard to really kind of put your mind around all of those and organize them coherently. You can, and I will. Yeah. I'm going to try. So far, I've got 13 movies on the list, and I'm already struggling to really figure out which ones are better than the other ones.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, towards the top, it's very, very difficult. Because it's hard.
Interesting. I always thought the top was the easy part.
No, the top is difficult for me. But it's towards the bottom where I'm like, which one's better, The King of Staten Island or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? I don't care.
I do. Clearly, it's Hitchhikers.
Incremental. Yeah. Honestly, it's like the top 50 is what really, like, that's the stuff that I really care about. But, it's fine. I look at the lists a lot. I also watched Light Sleeper.
What is that? Never heard of it.
That is a Paul Schrader directed movie.
Ah, good old Paul Schrader.
Stars Willem Dafoe and Susan Sarandon.
Interesting.
It's fine. I don't care. Paul Schrader, I like him, but I feel like his movies, this is the same problem I have with Mishima. His movies are too literary to the point where the filmmaking does not keep up with it, I feel. They're so dense, like novels, but there's nothing about the filmmaking that makes me want to explore them, with the exception of a few. But I also noticed a trend here because Light Sleeper is about a fucked up white guy who keeps a diary of the fucked up world around him. That's Taxi Driver, that's First Reformed, and that's Light Sleeper.
Interesting.
He likes his fucked up white guys with diaries.
Mishima to an extent.
I did a double feature.
Not a white guy, but...
Huh?
Mishima to an extent, too.
To an extent. I did a double feature of Light Sleeper and Charlie's Angels.
Fascinating.
And you know what? I liked Charlie's Angels more. Charlie's Angels is not that bad of a movie. It is really, really stupid, but it is very, very fun. And I don't know. I can't say for certain, but I feel like the director of Charlie's Angels must really be a big fan of Wes Anderson, because this came out in the year 2000 and it has Owen Wilson, Bill Murray, and Andrew Wilson, who's the oldest Wilson brother, who's in Bottle Rocket. Interesting pairing. Then finally, I watched Broken Flowers.
Yes, I took the time to look at that because it was yet another film you logged on Letterboxd that I had no idea what it was, and surprised. Is this your highest rated Bill Murray performance? I feel like it is because you're not the biggest Bill Murray fan.
I like Bill Murray quite a bit, actually.
Do you? Who is someone I know isn't big into Bill Murray?
I think you're getting me confused with not being that into Lost in Translation.
And Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day's fine. I'm more into
and never having seen Ghostbusters.
Oh, I've never seen Ghostbusters, but that is none. Oh, and Life Aquatic. I do not like Life Aquatic.
So you know it's not baseless.
No, you're right. You're right. No, the best Bill Murray performance is Rushmore, but this is also very, very good.
Rushmore.
Yeah, him in the Budweiser shorts is cinema. No, this is it's Jim Jarmusch. It's another Jim Jarmusch movie. It's one that I hadn't seen. I wasn't expecting a lot, but I actually really, really liked it. And it has an actor who I really love, Jeffrey Wright, who I don't know if you know him off the top of your head, but he played the guy that Tom Hiddleston got blood from in Only Lovers Left Alive.
Yes, he did. I know him.
He's playing Commissioner Gordon in the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. And he is
That's good casting. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah, it is. He's one of the leads in the upcoming Wes Anderson movie. The French Dispatch. He's one of the journalists who gets
Wes Anderson film.
His is the one I'm looking forward to most because from what I can gather from the trailer, his vignette in the film is a journalist doing a piece about a chef. And you know how much we love movies about food.
We do.
That's pretty much all I got.
Oh, interesting.
Now you can go into what you've watched, but I've one specific one to ask you about.
Great. Let's start with. I'm going to go through half, and then I'll ask you what.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
And then if I bring it up, then please stop me. So I watched After the Storm, Hirokazu Koreeda. Great, honestly great. Love the director. Need to watch more. I rewatched Bringing Up Baby, Howard Hawks.
You're on a Cary Grant binge.
That is such a exhausting movie. Like it is constant. If you think that His Girl Friday is, they talk a lot, but it's not necessarily high energy as much as Bringing Up Baby.
I think it is.
No, it is.
Okay,
but there's like 5 things going on at once. There's a leopard on the loose. There's Cary Grant. There's it's just so much. It's still funny. It might be too much.
His Girl Friday was too exhausting for me.
Well, then Bring Up Baby it's even more. I watched Bean Pole, which depending on how you count it is a 2019 movie because it was premiered in 2019, but no one actually saw it until 2020. It is a Russian movie, and I was disappointed by it. I heard great things, and it was just kind of dull.
Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
Did you hear about this through the online cinema grapevine, or does this have anything to do with the amount of Bean memes I've been sending you, affecting you subconsciously?
It has. Perhaps your Bean memes prompted me to watch it, but it's been on my radar for a while since the 2019 festival circuit.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't finish it.
Didn't even finish it.
It was really well shot, and I don't know. I rented it, and I just didn't care to continue, and it expired. Okay. So here we are.
All right.
I watched a Luchino Visconti movie, Rocco and his brothers. These Italians, they make great movies, and
I've yet to see one.
It's really good. It's a good family movie, not necessarily to watch with your family, but a movie about family.
Yeah.
So
that's what's so powerful about
it. Yeah, because it's really about family. I mean, quite honestly, there are so many great movies about family that Star Wars should be taking its cues from. Like Star Wars was great when it was copying things. It needs to copy things more, quite frankly.
It copies Star Wars.
It's eating itself. It's an Ouroboros of junk at this point. Anyway,
I'm curious.
yeah,
Tangent, is Star Wars on the BFI list?
it is not.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've started compiling a list of criminal or at least severe oversights on the BFI list, and
okay.
Red Shoes, obviously,
I'm proposing
Star
at
Wars.
some points. I'm proposing at some point in the near future we do an episode on the original trilogy. Because it'll finally get me to see them, because I haven't seen them in over a decade.
I haven't seen them in a while too.
And we get Sanju.
That's just because Nate had the original trilogy. I had the Blu-ray of the prequel trilogy. So when we were rooming together, we could watch them anytime we wanted. And now
hate to see it.
Now I don't have a copy. I watched a movie called Blind Alley, directed by Charles Vidor. This is like an old 1930s gangster home invasion movie. And it's kind of a psychological thriller too. Very much middle of the road old movie. Not really worth it, except for the fact that I think a lot of the tropes of like a home invasion and psychological thriller can be found in this film. So it's interesting as a piece of early film history. Not much else.
Homework for slasher fans.
Yeah. I think it is a great movie for homework. Like if you're making that kind of movie, if you want to write that kind of movie, I'd recommend it. Watched another Ken Loach movie, which we reviewed Kess earlier in this podcast.
Recent one. Yeah, I know that you did you reviewed one of his more recent movies.
Yeah, Sorry We Missed You, which was last year.
When I saw this on your Letterboxd, I was not aware he was alive.
Still alive, still making movies. Man is ancient.
I always think of him as like a much older filmmaker, but realistically, if you line up when he started making movies to when Mike Leigh started making movies, they're kind of similar.
Yeah,
it's just that Mike Leigh didn't get recognition for like 10 or 20 years later. It's because his movies were all on TV and no one saw them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry We Missed You. It's kind of oppressive in its tone and message. And therefore it's not particularly engaging during some parts of it, but I think it is a really great, like it's like a great movie that is hard to watch, sort of. And it's great because it is one of the only movies I've seen that really talks about some of the economic hardships of recent years, of particularly. So it's about a gig, like the gig economy. It's about a driver, a delivery guy, who is technically his own boss, but that's a bunch of bullshit. And the whole movie is about how the system of gig working and capitalism by extension fucks him over, his family, and not exactly a happy movie to watch, but it was at the very least important, I think, at least in its message and what it was trying to communicate. I think it did that effectively. Watched The Queen's Gambit. Not really a movie.
Oh yeah, you watched the whole thing. Well,
7-hour long movie.
Miniseries are closer to films than like a multi-season show.
Yeah,
I'll count it.
Yeah, it is strangely paced, but really well shot, and that's all I'm going to say about that. I liked it.
That's how I felt because I watched the first episode, and I thought, okay, I don't really care enough to keep watching. Thing about TV shows is that like I'm very, very picky because TV shows are like, even the ones I really, really like Better Call Saul, I'm really bad at watching them. So they have to be really good for me to devote my time to them.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode and I thought it's pretty good, but nothing I want to like. But maybe it's because it's shorter. I'd be into it. I've also been playing a lot of chess recently.
So have I.
Completely unrelated to the Queen's Gambit.
Completely related to the Queen's Gambit. It got me into.
Jacob, I'll happily play chess.
Great. I play a couple games every day versus the computer. So a human might be nice for once.
Oh, nice. I know. There's this YouTube channel that I really, really like called Down the Rabbit Hole, who does like these great internet documentaries. And he did one on the creation of the first computer that beat a grandmaster in chess. It's a very interesting story, but I was watching it 2 hours and I'm not even that into chess. And then I remember thinking, I want to play chess.
So
and then the Queen's Gambit came out.
I'm going to stop here because I have a hunch the next film might be what you're going to ask me about. But what film are you curious about?
It's Putney Swope.
Oh, well, that's not it. But
oh, what did you think it was? Oh,
Fallen
continue.
Angels by Wong Kar-wai.
Oh no,
what?
It looks good.
Which is interesting. After I watched it, I found out that Wong Kar-wai considers it to be like a partner film with Chungking Express.
Yeah, I did read that.
That like if he could put them all together into a 3-hour movie, he would. Which makes sense. You know, it was good. It was good. Not obviously not at the level of Chungking or In the Mood for Love, but it's pretty good. Fun. He always films things in interesting ways.
I want to make this distinction now because I feel like it's going to come up at some point. Jacob is a In the Mood for Love kind of guy, and I'm very much a Chungking Express kind of guy.
Which makes sense. I was just editing our Chinatown review in which I explained that I'm someone who, do you remember that? How I kind of broke down our different ideas or preferences for film. And I think
that's funny because In the Mood for Love is also one of those movies that I'm not as big of a fan of, but I have no reason not to be.
Interesting.
Because I do think In the Mood for Love is kind of stupidly perfect. But hey, I like being kind of annoyed when I hear California Dreamin' for the 12th time in a row. That's my definition of cinema.
Well, that's fair enough. To each his own. I watched High Hopes, another Mike Leigh film. Great.
That one's great. That one's one of my favorites.
It's got lots of personality. All the characters are fun.
Leslie Manville.
People were like annoying, but they weren't annoying me as I was watching it, which sometimes very infrequently happens with some of Mike Leigh's characters. And
like the lead in Secrets and Lies.
Maybe. But it was just kind of fun, I guess. Like it was less Secrets and Lies was really heavy for a Mike Leigh movie, and High Hopes is a bit it deals with a lot of his similar themes of family and responsibility, all that kind of yada yada yada, but a bit less dour.
Yeah, it's fun, little slice of life. I love the based couple. They're great.
They are a based couple. Favorite scene, the visit to Karl Marx's grave.
The based couple with English Shelley Duvall.
That's great.
And the boyfriend is the Vera Drake's husband, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not actually.
Yes. No, he is.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I was wondering where I'd seen him before, and I thought I had seen him elsewhere, but it was literally just
I saw
Mike
him in
Leigh
something
movies.
Recently, and I can't remember, so I'm not going to bring it up. But yes, High Hopes, good movie.
Yep.
It's up there it's in the A tier for Mike Leigh for me. That one's great.
It's pretty good. Pieces of a Woman, 2020.
That's new.
It is. Starring Shia LaBeouf, Vanessa Kirby. Benny Safdie's in it too. Fun fact.
Is he really?
He is, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
that much. Supporting role.
Benny Safdie is going to be in the new PTA movie. I also keep forgetting that.
Fun. Pieces of a Woman. I read a review going into it that said that the first 30 minutes were amazing and the rest of it was kind of a letdown. And I was like, that you couldn't be right. You can't start a movie that great and then not do as well later on. They were right. The first 30 minutes are really, the film was worth it for that alone. And then the rest of it was just kind of,
I hate to see it.
A bit treading water, I should say.
Have you seen The Place Beyond the Pines?
I have not.
Exact same situation.
I think you might have brought this up before, that you like the Ryan Gosling part and then the rest of it's kind of.
Yeah, it's a movie that's divided into 3 different parts with 3 different sets of characters. The first part has Ryan Gosling and it's amazing. And everything else sucks. It happens.
I watched Putney Swope.
Putney Swope. What a movie.
You know what? I knew it was going to be different. I knew the general gist of the plot because you had explained it to me before. but nothing could have prepared me for what Putney Swope was. Like when you say a board of directors votes a black guy in as the chairman because they don't want to vote for anyone else, you think like it's going to be like, and it's a 60s, 70s, late 60s movie.
Yeah, 60s. Yeah.
You think it's going to be like a corporate movie, like satirizing corporate America, but in a very kind of run of the mill Hollywood type way, right? It is not that whatsoever, and I think that's what I appreciate about it the most, is that it takes such an absurd idea and then runs with the absurdity in the filmmaking itself, which makes it very unique. And it's insane and hilarious because of that.
It's one of those things that I think it's not perfect by any means, but I give it some credit for being that insane in the 60s.
Yes.
Robert Downey Sr.
And
which is,
you never would have expected it from the guy. But then again, I've never seen anything by him, so I didn't know what to expect.
I'm too afraid to look at anything else. But I know I became aware of this movie because Paul Thomas Anderson is a big fan of it. And there's actually some Criterion Channel supplements where he interviews Robert Downey Sr. about this stuff. The funniest story I remember is that Paul Thomas Anderson like told Robert Downey Sr. all these different theories as to why he hired a little person to play the president.
Was it Mimo or something? So
and Martin Robert Downey Sr. just says he was the best actor. He's completely uninterested in these theories. It's just so weird. The commercials are great.
It's great. The midget president. That's great.
Yeah, good movie though.
Yeah, don't care to talk about anything else. Let's talk about the death of Stalin.
Death of Stalin. So Death of Stalin is a movie that came out in 2018?
17?
Somewhere around there.
We probably watched it in 2018, but
one of those
came out, quote, in
It was
17.
a movie that when I saw the trailer, I was very, very excited for it because that's such an absurd concept. It's essentially I don't want to say mockumentary, it's a satire.
It's a satire.
The struggle
filmed like you might film a mockumentary, but it's not really a mockumentary.
Because it's directed by Armando Iannucci, who had a show. I don't remember what the show was called, but they did a movie version of the show called In the Loop, which is very much in the same vein.
I love In the Loop.
And then he has the show Veep, which is hilarious on HBO. But it is a satire just satire. It's a dark comedy satire about the struggle for power in the wake of Stalin's untimely death. It has a great cast, and the funniest thing about it to me is that not a single person in this movie attempts a Russian accent. It's just everybody doing their regular accents. So you have a little bit of Cockney, you have American, you have the Queen's English, just a bunch of American and English actors in whatever accent they please, which kind of adds to this bizarre
chaos
tone to it.
The chaos of the whole thing, yeah.
But it's not more bizarre than what actually happened, because Stalinist Russia was a fucked up place. And I bring this up because this is a movie that I love. I've watched multiple times. I've seen it maybe like 2 or 3 times a year since it's come out. But the thing is, I don't find it very funny.
Interesting.
There are parts that I find funny. I think the whole opening scene with Paddy Considine is hilarious.
Nobody's gonna get killed, I promise you.
Where he has to re-record this symphony presentation because Stalin wants it. But it's a movie that, despite it being occasionally funny, I just find it so fascinating. It reminds me a lot of Army of Shadows. Where this world is just so fraught with paranoia and anxiety and suspicion that just being in this world, I feel like if it was played more straight, it would be a movie I wouldn't revisit very much because it'd just be too tense for me. But it's this comedic sensibility that makes it a lot more watchable while still being very much rooted in that dark history that, I don't know, it's just alluding to me.
It is
Alluring to me.
alluring, yeah. It's interesting that it is so almost irreverent of history and yet obviously historical. And it's a testament to how people suspense of disbelief. It's a testament to that because while I'm watching it, it feels, I never really question anything. I never have questioned any of it in terms of like how ridiculous the premise of it is, of all these different actors playing all these different characters. It just feels the atmosphere of paranoia and the chaos of the editing and the acting. That's all you need. The rest of it, the actors, the accents, the language, superfluous. Don't need it. This is a testament how you just gotta go for what you want so specifically, and you'll hit it. Because this is ironically one of the better historical Russian movies. I mean, you can't really beat the historical nature of Andrei Rublev, regardless of whether you like that film or not. It is, well, regardless of whether you like the film or not.
Yeah, okay.
It is probably the only good historical Russian movie. But this one's pretty good too. It's pretty great. I too watch it quite a bit. This is the 4th time I've logged it on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
It probably might be
I saw it in the theater too.
I did too, yeah. I remember which theater too.
I did too. It was very empty showing.
I brought friends, so it wasn't empty for me.
I like going to movies by myself.
Well, sometimes you don't have an option.
There's a great YouTube channel called History Buffs that does basically. I feel like it's an insult to compare them, but he kind of is like CinemaSins for history nerds, but not nearly as grating or as shallow.
Because he actually
essentially reviews
stuff.
the historical accuracy of history-based movies, and he has a great video on this one. But
as someone might say, this film is most certainly a historically based film, and I mean based in every context you could imagine.
See, that's things I don't really know what to say about this movie because I feel like it's made up of so many great little moments. And it was this time around where I was watching where I was thinking there's not really a whole lot of structure to this movie. It's just kind of, it very much is just a movie where things just sort of happen until it ends. Like, obviously it's rooted in history and there's an escalation of conflict and stakes, but I've never been able to pinpoint what exactly goes on in this movie. Like, even after like the 4th or 5th viewing, I'm not entirely sure what Beria's plan was.
We're never really, other than like the vague idea of gathering more power, we don't know what Beria wants. But I feel like the arc of the film, the 3 acts are quite clear. Like Act 1, Stalin dies. The whole middle section of the film is Beria is controlling and is like the primary figure in that section. And then towards the end, Khrushchev, Nicky, finds his feet and takes over from there. So that's the basic kind of broad outline. But yes, it is.
Oh yeah,
no, scenes are going on.
I get how that works. It's just it's always towards the end where it's when Steve Buscemi confronts Jason Isaacs and they plot against Beria. That's where I'm always like, wait, why? Is it because Beria is like winning favor with the other cabinet members?
Well,
they don't really know what he's up to. They just know he's up to something.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that,
if anything, it speaks more to that paranoia.
Yes,
that's rampant.
But I think it is clear that Nikita Khrushchev is after more power, quite explicitly. Thinks that Beria is too, and therefore it's kind of it's set up as a rivalry between the two of them.
Yeah,
and the General Zhukov, he it's interesting because his motivation is buried. A lot of the motivation in the film is buried, which is why you don't get a lot of structure. But his motivation is there because Beria fucks over the military by essentially kicking them out and saying, all right, the NKVD is taking over Moscow during the funeral. And he's angry at that, so that's why he joins with Nikita. Obviously, I'm assuming history is a lot more complicated than that because Zhukov and Khrushchev did team up to get rid of him and to get Khrushchev into the premier ship head of the Soviet Union.
That's the thing is that like I'm not bringing this up because I think it's a flaw. I don't really care what was happening or why things are happening. It's one of those, it's like Army of Shadows where there's no real like goals in mind. You just kind of go from scene to scene to scene, but all within this contained world of paranoia and double crossing that makes every scene inherently tense and full of stakes without it necessarily needing to connect.
Well, I think it establishes that pretty early on in the movie, like the idea of paranoia that the movie trains you to always be looking for the little details. Like, what is someone going to do to slip up? And one of my favorite ones is the pianist. The conductor says even Stalin would know, and she gets she's like even Stalin. Like this is like wordplay at its finest. Like if you were just watching a movie, you would like even Stalin know. Why is that an issue? But it's like insinuating a demeaning quality to Stalin's ability to listen to music, and just that tiny bit of inference in language is enough to like put people on edge and like getting super worried, because then the conductor passes out after that. And the movie trains you with that opening scene to essentially be on high alert for the rest of the film. Like, what are people saying? What are they doing? How is it going to get them screwed over?
Well, it's interesting because it's a very bizarre way to open up the movie, where it's these two parallel scenes of characters that seemingly have nothing to do with each other, where you have one set of people who is very careless about their word choice and what they say, and it has drastic consequences. The other group of people, Stalin's cabinet hanging around with them, are very deliberate in what they choose to say. And I love that scene after Nikki finally goes home and he's just like doing a review with his wife of the things that he says that Stalin liked and the things that he says that Stalin didn't like. It's a very interesting pairing of scenes. It's just stuff like that I really, really like, because it takes paranoia to like a whole new level.
And it has fun with paranoia, which it doesn't. Movies don't do that.
No. Well, that's the thing is that, like I said, I don't find this to be a funny movie, but I do find this to be a very entertaining movie.
Might you say amusing? Amusing might be a better word.
Probably.
Because I might also say I don't find it funny. I do think every once in a while some of the jokes land for me. It is very much British humor, dry.
Yes, very much.
It's all insinuation or just insults or just under the surface kind of humor, where if you're just listening to what's happening, they're not telling jokes, but it is it is funny. Like lines can just, like, the way it's delivered sometimes can just pop out at you. Like they're debating about finding a doctor for Stalin, and the thing is, like, a few years before they got rid of all the good doctors, and one of the characters asks in kind of a wink wink nudge nudge way, what are people's thoughts on getting a bad doctor? And it's just like, it's not funny in any way.
Yeah, no.
But circumstance and delivery make it like absurd. It's absurd. The Soviet Union was absurd, so it's low-hanging fruit, I suppose, but the film does it well and intelligently.
It sounds weird, but when I say it is not funny to me, that doesn't mean it's unfunny. One scene that did make me laugh this time around was the scene where Jeffrey Tambor's character, I don't remember his name. I don't remember any of their names.
Malenkov.
But Jeffrey Tambor, who's
that's funny, actually. I actually remember all of their names. I know the cabinet's names at this point.
Well, he's the acting leader after Stalin dies, so he's getting his portrait done. And then he's just like looking at the two portraits, and the artist is like, with cheekbones, without cheekbones. And Jeffrey Tambor's like, I like that one. Have that one burned. Or destroyed, or whatever he says.
It was burned. Yeah, I think Jeffrey Tambor just great in this movie. He's probably the funniest actor in the film.
Of all of them, I don't know. Jason Isaacs is really funny.
Jason Isaacs, but he's not in the film all that much. I just
no,
like
he
that,
isn't.
That scene where he's like, burn that one, and then how about all of you kiss my Russian ass? Another great line.
Or when they try to do that swap at the funeral, and Steve Buscemi goes up and Jeffrey Tambor doesn't move, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Part of it is funny because it's not quite cringe humor, but it's tense humor because you've been trained to be like, what the fuck is Nikita doing? He's gonna get killed, but we know he's not because he's Nikita Khrushchev, and all the cabinet members are above the kind of paranoia, and yet that idea of paranoia still kind of lingers over everything.
Stalin's son too is also hilarious.
There's a great line. You blink and you miss it, and they're standing. Him and his sister are standing at the party, and they're just like standing around. No one's talking to them yet, and he's like, "I know. Smile, shake their hands, and try not to call them cunt." They're very blunt.
But what part of this movie always gets me is that it's darkly funny. It's amusing. It's almost, I don't want to say slapstick, but there's a certain upbeatness to the paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, but then the ending gets really dark.
There are a few moments,
the kangaroo trial,
where like the suspense is heightened, the tension, and that's one of them. Yeah.
Well, because the thing of Beria is like, they do a really good job at subtling alluding to how fucking terrible he was.
I think it was, if I remember my history correctly, pulling out some real history here, but during the Yalta conference, Stalin introduced Beria to Roosevelt and called him, "This is our Himmler." Himmler, obviously the Nazi that orders, well, I'm explaining to the audience, not necessarily you.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, Beria, he looks even weirder in person. I don't know if you've seen a picture of him. It's just a strange man.
Oh. Yeah. Oh God, the things you'd read about Beria, and they do a good job of not making him outright villainous, but showing just enough of that, like the way he just picks out girls, and just all the interrogation scenes. To where it's where like when he dies, I don't feel bad for him, but it is just the way that it's presented and just the way he plays knowing he's about to die, which is really, really dark.
It's one of the
just kind of ends.
Terror. Like, it's hard to act terrified. And I'd almost say like his performance of as he's about to get shot is a better portrayal of someone being terrified than most horror films have.
I agree.
Here's your trial.
Spit it out, will you? Please,
Marshal,
Comrade General Secretary! You're judging me! You're judging me! I judge you! I judge you! I judge all of you!
I agree.
And I think that ending scene, it channels Howard Hawks. It channels His Girl Friday, because it is, like it's constant talking. There's no editing, really. There's a little, the camera's shaking a little.
Everyone's screaming.
But they're just noise. You can barely hear Nikita kind of reading out the charges against Beria, and then they're dragging Beria out of the barn, and it's just, oh my God. That is like, that's a good scene. Like in terms of filmmaking, that is like a great like showcase of like how to make a scene filled with tension that's not like manipulating you with music or anything.
But it's so straightforward.
Yeah,
because there's a like a line where Steve Buscemi, like, he's reading all the charges, and he said like, Barry, you're being charged with like 320 counts of rape or something like that. And as soon as like he reads that, just the terrified scream that Beria gives. But the thing is, like, it never stops. It's so straightforward. It's literally just handy cam shot of people shouting in a room, and the second the gun goes off, dead silence. It's all done. And it just kind of ends after that.
Yeah. Well, Nikita sweeps things under the rug.
It's a great ending shot, though, when they have that guy who's looking down at him, the guy who takes over his role
Brezhnev.
a few years down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Michael Palin.
I love him. There's some actors in this film who are just they're acting and they're doing a great job acting, but they're just kind of the older versions of themselves. And I feel like Michael Palin's just like showing up and he's like, you've got to get Beria or he's going to get you, isn't he? As he's playing with his dog. It's great.
Yeah. God, it just makes me wish we could have seen Monty Python's The Death of Stalin. What a great film.
Yeah, it's a great little history lesson. And with any film, I think it's important about history that you take the kind of broad ideas of what it's trying to communicate rather than obviously the details. But it is, there's not that many movies about Soviet politics, which is interesting because I think it's a time and a place that is ripe for conflict and drama.
It is, but it's one of those things that, okay, if you have an American make it, then there's a complete bias there. The Russians aren't going to make it because that would be admitting too much.
It's like, who's going to make it? And obviously Armando Iannucci, who is an Italian working in the UK.
Yeah, no, but Iannucci does political films well.
Yeah,
I want to watch In the Loop again.
I
always forget James Gandolfini's in that one.
In the Loop is
classic.
The lines are maybe funnier, but I think The Death of Stalin is the more kind of cohesive film in its entirety.
I agree.
And I don't think people give Death of Stalin enough credit. Like it is.
No, they don't. I feel like this movie just got forgotten about.
Yeah, it's incredibly unique. It's very rewatchable. It's very entertaining, even like on a first watch. Flies by. And I always think it's like an hour and a half, but it's more like an hour 50.
Yeah. Great cast.
Great cast. Great.
Funny.
Like the camera works great too for just being.
It's it's deliberate in what it shows, not how it shows it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fine too. I love the scene where the KGB is like clearing out Stalin's house after everyone leaves. Or when when Stalin's like casket or whatever is leaving that house and Beria steps out to do the salute. So he gets everybody else to step out, but then once everybody else is out, he runs back in the car and they go off. It's great. It's great. A lot of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's improvised, but it also isn't.
Right.
Maybe it's just the way that it was edited, but I don't know. It captures a lot, I feel.
It certainly does. It's it's a pretty good movie. I like it.
It's the best movie where Stalin pisses himself. I also just love that Stalin has a Cockney accent.
That's great. It really is great. And, I don't think they could have gotten anyone better than Steve Buscemi to play Nikita Khrushchev. Somehow it works.
I don't know anything about Nikita Khrushchev, but I think he's very good in this movie.
It's great. Great. I love Soviet politics. Maybe one of these days I'll finally break open that 1,000-page biography of Stalin I have.
Would you consider Chernobyl to be in this category? It's not Stalin.
No, but it is like USSR.
Yes. But that is also made by an American, but do you feel it has an American point of view? Because I feel like there's no good way to portray the Russian government in regards to the Chernobyl incident.
Well, okay, let's. I have to think about my words because it's so wonderful. I'm so happy that I live now because you can say things now that if you said them in the 50s, you'd be fucked. But I'd say Chernobyl is very critical of the Russian government, and it shies away from the Russian and its economic system, otherwise known as communism, which is good. So, and what I mean by good is that it
I mean based.
Chernobyl's pretty based. It's not blinded by like it's not out to get the Soviet Union for everything that it was. More so,
Yeah.
it is it's just trying to point out the lunacy of a government that ignores truth in favor of a comforting lie, which it the thing that separates Chernobyl from being like a hit piece on the Soviet Union is that I feel the ending is very much a pointed attack at Trumpism and the lies that have been accepted as truth and reality that have been going on for like the past 4 years. That is what it is about. Like it's not about condemning the Soviet Union, though it does.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was an interesting Chernobyl tangent. So yeah,
mini Chernobyl review.
Mini tiny Chernobyl. Yeah. Death of Stalin, great. Really watch it. It's Netflix. It's easy to find. Apparently not easy enough for our guest, but hey.
Well, you know, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Jesus Christ. Did Coco Chanel take a shit on your head?
No, he did not.
We are joined today by our good friend Chandler from the East Coast. Say hi, Chandler.
Other Chandler.
Hello, it is me, Other Chandler.
He has, you may, if you are a regular listener, you may recognize him from our Tatami Galaxy, There Was Blood, Salo, and Cure episode. Yeah. Wow, it was a long time ago.
He's a barfly in the Criterion Channel Discord. The Discord I highly recommend.
I suppose I am.
Well, I am too.
Me,
I
not so
post
much.
too often in that Discord.
That's fine.
I got nothing to do at work.
So it's been a while since we last talked.
Yeah.
East Coast Chandler. How has it been? How has your journey through cinema been these past 6 months?
It's been great. I finished my 2020 movie marathon of watching a film every day in 2020, and that was a ride. Probably the most painful thing I've ever done with something that is not supposed to be painful.
No.
Painful in what
just
way?
Watching
Like
movies.
Forcing yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it was more good than bad, but there are definitely times where it's like, I honestly wish that the movie camera was never invented because it has damned me to this life. But it's been really it's such a huge crash course of watching all of the films that I did, and just it opened me up a lot more ways than it hurt me. So,
do you have any highlights that you want to talk about?
What's the worst one you watched? Did you make a list at all?
I haven't finished my list yet, but I do only have. So I reviewed everyone on Letterboxd, and I only gave 2 films a 1-star review on Letterboxd, and that was Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman and The Joker. or just Joker. Those were honestly like those are honestly the only 2 movies that I really didn't like, which was good. I think that's a really good turnout.
Yeah, if
so are you telling me that the Smosh movie got 2 stars?
Not bad.
The Smosh movie. I would give the
How many
Smosh
stars
movie.
did the Smosh movie get?
I give Smosh a solid 4.5.
An unseen
Very
masterpiece.
based film.
Oh, totally.
We'll be learning about it in film history books years from now.
We've been talking for a long time about doing the final episode. We're going to pair Vertigo with something amazing, like actually good, like the Smosh movie or Gooby or
the Fred movie
or Fred the movie.
Ooh,
yeah,
Fred the
Fred the
movie.
That's a good one. It's got
Fred
Weezer
for fake. That's got Weezer.
Does
in
it? Oh my goodness. Weezer always has to be brought up whenever Chandler and Chandler.
this is also the Weezer podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Weezer Cinema Podcast. Continue
Terrible.
though.
Oh yeah, with my marathon. What else? The Ozu marathon. That was awesome. I watched all of Ozu's filmography in like the span of March and April. Which was also very interesting experience because I started it before the start of the lockdown, and then like it happened, but I still had Ozu, and I feel like if I wasn't watching Ozu, I would have been in a much worse state because he really puts you in a very calmer and simpler state.
Now with
Comfortingly sad.
Ozu, a lot
Yeah.
of his movie, for me at least, and I've watched them kind of spread out a lot more. They all kind of like blend together at some point. How was it
Yeah.
watching them all like back to back in a short period of time?
I think in that way, watching it back to back actually helped me realize the nuances more. Because obviously I recognize when he was going through the same motions, but having just seen like the last film or the past like 3 films and seeing when he does it again, you sort of are, it sort of is more fresh and complex instead of being like a sort of filed away in your brain where it's like, it is this. And then when it comes back again, it's just that simple idea. But definitely having it fresh in my mind, sort of got to see more about how he very slowly changed the same few ideas over his career.
Other than the big one of like Tokyo Story or Late Spring. Other than that, like something a little less well known. What might be your favorite Ozu?
My favorite Ozu is, here's a take for you. I'm not even that big a fan of Tokyo Story.
Ooh.
Interesting.
But my
That hurts.
favorite Ozu film, the one I like the most, the one I think that like surprisingly hit me the most was Floating Weeds,
Which one?
the remake,
Okay.
the 1959
Mm-hmm.
Floating Weeds. I love Story of Floating Weeds, and but they are surprisingly different. The time span from the young Ozu and the Story of Floating Weeds to an older Ozu was a very interesting dichotomy, sort of seeing him maybe focusing more on the younger people in the first one, and then seeing him sympathize more with the older actors and characters in the remake. Very, very obvious seeing him grow old and whatnot.
I've only seen 2 Ozus.
You should see more.
Come on, man. Come on.
But there's so few to choose from.
What? There's 30 32? 30 33 something?
I've seen Tokyo Story and Late Spring.
Yeah.
And I'm a
that's fine.
normie who likes Tokyo Story, apparently. And so is Late Spring is good too.
I think a lot of people.
I
I
love
just
Late
like
Spring.
I just like that woman's smile. Very comforting
yeah.
presence.
Yeah.
She's a trilogy of movies.
Setsuo Hara. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I need to. Back last year, I made a point to buy all of the Ozu Blu-rays from Criterion, and then I never bothered rewatching them. I've seen them. I bought them and then let's put them on my shelf.
They look nice.
How many are there? 4?
5. Tokyo Story, Late Spring, An Autumn Afternoon,
Flavor of
Good
green
Morning.
tea over ice.
Good Morning, Flavor
Good
of Green Tea
Morning.
Over Rice. Yeah.
That's the one I didn't know was Flavor of Green Tea Over Rice.
Which is such a weird one for them to put in Blu-ray form.
It was kind
instead
of odd.
some of the other ones.
Great
Instead
title.
of, like,
It
Floating
might be one of my
Weeds or
favorite
something.
Ozu
Or no,
titles.
sorry, Floating Weeds is one.
Floating Weeds
Yeah,
just
good
needs
title.
a Blu-ray.
Floating Weeds needs because they have the DVD, but that's been out of print forever.
I got that actually too. I found it at the used bookstore in town.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I found like I've got into Edward Yang over this time, who I
Ooh.
think has become my favorite director.
Really?
Based Yang.
Now,
Yeah,
it's hard to find a lot of his movies. So how
It
many did you
is.
end up being able to watch?
I was able to watch all the Criterion ones, so I got to see Brighter Summer Day, Yi Yi, and not the Terrorizers,
Taipei Story?
Taipei Story, and then I got to see the Terrorizers on Mubi, and it might still be on Mubi. I'm not sure. And did I see any other ones? I don't think so.
I have been unable to find the other ones. I found a copy of Mahjong, but it was terrible, and I just didn't want to watch it.
Wow.
Yeah, the quality was not. Yeah,
I feel like he's one of those guys that we're gonna see his movies, like more of them being restored.
I hope so.
He didn't have that many, and he didn't have that many, and it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, and it's really surprising because they're also all under the same production company, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the rights aren't that hard to find. Maybe it's just finding prints.
Maybe they
know.
didn't like care to save the prince on his earlier films.
Yeah, but I'd still be surprised because a lot of them were still with the what's it called? Central film studio, whatever it is in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
The government
Taiwan, that's what it is.
the government film company. But regardless, Edward Yang, just a beautiful man and beautiful director.
Oh yeah.
Well, speaking of movies we watched last year, I ended up watching a lot of new movies, but out of all of them, I think I can fairly confidently say that A Brighter Summer Day was my favorite that I watched last year.
That's awesome.
Oh, interesting. It's up there for me.
It's great.
In my top.
It's
10.
I don't know if you've noticed Arizona Chandler or East Coast Chandler, but I made a new favorite movies list, and Brighter Summer Day
Another new
shot
one?
quite high. Like a 20. I put it as 2021 edition on Letterboxd.
Okay.
I'll check that.
Did it shoot above Yee Yee?
No.
Oh,
It might eventually.
Oh, okay. Because that's the real test of a man, is if they like Yee Yee better or Brighter Summer Day better. It really tells you about somebody.
It does. You know, Yee Yee has been with me for a while, so I'm still kind of clinging to it.
Yeah.
But I do foresee Brighter Summer Day might overtake it eventually.
I saw
Wow.
both of them within the same month, and I'm leaning towards Brighter Summer Day right now. Yee Yee, when I saw it, it was a revelation. It all happened at once. I
Right.
watched it. I absorbed it. I thought, damn, this is amazing. Brighter Summer Day, I watched it all in one day, all in one sitting. And I thought, what was that? Then we had the episode of Daisuke where we talked about it, and I thought, oh, that was pretty good. And I think about it at least once a day.
Wow.
So over time, it has gone up.
That's
But
great.
my favorite movie from last year is still Naked. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Naked's great.
Yee Yee, more like Lee.
What? No.
Cringe.
Yeah.
Literally cringing right now.
Oh well.
So
Yeah. There you go.
Chandler, you did a movie a day last year. Do you have any plans
Oh, yeah.
for this year watching
No,
movies?
Did you
I have
take a
not
day
watched-
off?
Yeah, so here's the thing. On a couple occasions, I did not watch a movie a day. I still consider the fact that I did, but a couple of them were outstanding reasons. One of them was because of my sister's wedding.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll take that off. And one day, I didn't actually, knock on a billion pieces of wood, get very sick last year. I don't know how that will do this year, but I actually never really got sick last year. But one day I remember I just had like a raging headache and my stomach hurt so bad, and I was just like bed struck for the whole day. So not much I could have done there. So I just watched 2 the next day.
Especially when your head hurt.
Yeah, and I just said, fuck it. I'll still consider this a win.
Oh, it's still way more than most of us.
Yeah.
366
More than Jacob,
films.
and that's a testament.
It's not more than me.
But I've not watched a film at all this year yet.
Really?
Good. Hey, take
Yeah.
a break.
That's fine. I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 2 weeks in at this point.
Yeah, I got time. I got the 2. I got a couple new Criterions. I got the Louis Brunet box set.
Oh, that's new.
The three
Yeah,
three
new
films by Louis
Blu-ray.
Brunet, and I got Minding the Gap, which I'm excited to watch with my friends.
Ooh.
That's out?
That's
Just came out, probably.
Yeah, it came out the 12th, 11th.
That's amazing. Okay, I have to
Yeah.
go get that. Fun fact about Jacob Chandler. He's seen almost every. Is it Buñuel?
Bunwell.
Buñuel. He's seen almost
Ooh,
every Buñuel film
Bye-bye.
except for The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie.
And
Wow.
what was it? The Phantom of Liberty is the other one in that box set.
Yes.
Yeah, I did a huge Bunwell binge last year.
And that's surprising too, because The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie is like his most popular and
Yeah,
accessible.
Which is why I think I avoided it, because I felt that
Gotcha.
it was
like
probably
sort
the
of
easiest to find. And
yeah.
It's on Prime, yeah.
they had a bunch of his movies on the Criterion Channel at one point, and
Yep.
a lot of them were harder to find. So I was like, I'll prioritize these. And then it came the end of the month, and Discreet Charm left, and now I'm gonna wait until the flash sale, and I'll get the that Bunwell box and watch that.
Perfect.
I still have only seen the one, the two.
Un Chien Andalou, and
Hmm.
we did watch another, didn't we?
Lost in the Damned? Is that Buñuel?
Yes.
Or am I cringing?
No, you are correct. Los Olvidados.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's what it is. Both good.
Cool. Both good.
Both good.
Yeah. I think my last comment, and this is something that I noticed I wanted to share with you, is that very interestingly, every time that we've had a podcast episode together is when I've got a new computer equipment. So the first time we did the podcast, I got my new PC, and then the second podcast, I got my new microphone setup, and now I recently got a new keyboard and mouse, and here we are, on the Split Take podcast. So I guess that's sort of like, I don't know, is this like the
tradition?
Yeah, it's a tradition. Sort of how I will test out my new equipment. Not that I can really test out my keyboard. I can very loudly clack my keys if you'd like.
That. That's marvelous.
Did you get a Razer?
I love good keyboards.
I did get a Razer.
Oh,
I think I asked you this in the Discord the other day. I think we got something similar.
Yeah.
So I got one that was on sale during Black Friday, I think. All I remember is I impulse bought it when I was riddled with COVID.
Well. Anyway, the point being, next time you get something new for your computer, Chandler,
I guess so. Yeah, maybe I've been thinking about getting a new monitor soon, so I guess you'll hear me then.
Oh,
well, we are trying to make a conscious decision to get more people on as guests, just because we kind of,
that is our 2021
got a
resolution
in the late 2020.
Perfect.
Yeah,
don't sweat it.
I mean,
time. Yes, it's not like it was the best of times to be working that crazy. So
I bet we could easily get Daisuke again.
Oh yeah, just have to email him, and maybe try for some big fish. Who knows?
Yeah,
he theorized DMing Mark Kermode the other day.
Yeah, get Kermode on here.
Is a big fish.
Can't hurt.
Just give him a cold.
I feel like there's a good amount of mid-level critics that we could easily get.
Keep talking. I'm going to be right back, and then we'll start on our main discussion.
Oh, now it's really the Chandler show.
Now it's really okay. So if you haven't been doing movies, have you been playing more games? Because I've been watching your Sims content.
Thank you. Yes, I've been. I started a Let's Play channel, which is my childhood dream. Yeah, I've just been playing video games, a bunch of stuff that I've already had. And so this is like a really good way for me to finally get in there and play it. And yeah, I've really kind of come to terms or been comfortable doing it, because I used to feel like it was kind of damning yourself to stream and record all of your like video game playing. Because I felt like there was like sort of the world was trying to build this sort of like consumerist mentality in everyone to sort of like help them like make the most out of you playing their content, whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's true in some ways, but I found a way where it's really just like I'm just capturing what I'm doing normally, and I'm not changing it. I'm not trying to like make it clickbait or change anything I do. I'm not like putting on this big personality. I'm doing what I want to do, what I've always wanted to do, and I've been enjoying it.
Honestly, there's also that issue of this idea of performance.
Yep.
Whenever you do something that you kind of overact, and I've only seen the first 2 videos you've done of The Sims, but it doesn't seem that way at all. If that's any help,
Yeah, I'm literally.
you
I
seem
mean,
pretty much the exact same.
hey, I'm struggling on there too, right? Like, and I'm letting it go. I'm not going to let myself like. I'm not gonna pain myself to be somebody I'm not. If
Yeah.
somebody likes it, then that's great. I know I would enjoy content like that. So, yeah, it's been very fun.
So you're doing The Sims now. Any plans for other games in the future?
I have a backlog of some indie games that I want to play, some pretty short ones. The next big one is Kentucky Route Zero, though,
Oh,
which
interesting.
is going to be super fun.
I can't remember. Are you a fan of the Yakuza games?
I am, and those are coming to a
Okay.
PC soon. All of them are coming to PC soon.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just started playing the first Yakuza game.
Perfect.
The remake of the first one that came out around the same time as Zero. It's one of those things where if I eventually move into a place with Jacob, I'm gonna make him play the Yakuza game.
You force this man. Yeah, Yakuza Kiwami is a
I'm gonna make him
great game.
I'm gonna make him play the Yakuza games, and I'm gonna make him play Persona 5. Those are the 2 things.
Okay, maybe don't make him do that. You're trying to keep him your friend.
Whoa, hey! If he likes Your Name, he'll like Persona 5.
Oh
We have a
Lord.
Your Name apologist in the chat.
Apologist.
We got some Chandler apologists here.
What's more cringe, the Your Name apologists or the Weezer fans?
Ooh. Oh.
Is Van Weezer still coming out?
I think so. Is it? When is It's supposed
Van
May
Weezer
7th,
May 7th,
2021.
2021. So we don't know. And that is still the cover. Awesome.
Well, this is the first time I've looked at the YouTube stats for Film Sync in a while. I've been neglecting my
how we
duties
been
on
doing?
here.
How we doing?
How are the analytics, the stats?
They're doing fine. I mean, it's small, but it gets views. It's interesting because Squarespace doesn't tell me anything really of value with regards to how many people listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
So I get real numbers from Spotify specifically, which are fine. They're decent. But the YouTube numbers are the only like accurate. Like, oh, look, that's so many people listen to it. How many liked? How many disliked? Interesting amount of.
I totally see just how easy it probably is to get more dislikes in the film discourse just because of how opinionated and like kind of polarizing film has become with the general
Especially
populace.
since we deal with a lot of quote unquote classic.
Yeah.
We don't really have all that like hot takes.
No, but
though.
I don't know. You probably just don't say the right things.
It's probably that.
I think
I would
is
not
a very
I would not consider myself a very polished film critic in any way. Not like Chandler, the same. So our reviews are kind of
at least you take notes.
all over the place sometimes. So I get our faults. It's interesting.
It's
but none of like.
I what I'm convinced is that there's a Discord out there full of it's a Discord dedicated to The Imitation of Life. Big fans of The Imitation of Life. And
which is the worst film we've seen so far.
They're desperate for content regarding their favorite movie. They stumbled upon our podcast. They listened to us shit on it for an hour. And now they're enacting vengeance.
That's the internet, though.
Quite a few, with a couple hundred views on them. So that's not bad. No. Okay, but that's a tangent. Me looking at that, I'll close that.
Let's talk about a real movie now.
One of the realest movies.
Cependant, le commandant Kraus vous rappelle que vous êtes ici sous l'autorité des lois allemandes. Station d'évasion, les sentinelles en ordre de tirer sur tout officier surpris en dehors des limites.
So I am very curious, having seen this film before, as to what Chandler are going to have to say about it. But so I'll introduce it and then kind of pass the baton and listen for a bit. The movie we are reviewing today is The Grand Illusion, directed by Jean Renoir from 1937, I think. And we've talked about Renoir before on this podcast. We reviewed A Day in the Country, which is a quote unquote short film of his.
That's what it was. Okay.
Yep.
They sound familiar.
That it was kind of restored. He never got around to editing it. Yada yada. There's some interesting history, but it's interesting. We will be returning to Renoir later in the podcast with The Rules of the Game, which he directed 2 years after The Grand Illusion. But this is our first real like feature length bite into the work of Jean Renoir. And
also
he's,
returning
of course,
is Eric von Stroheim.
Yo.
Yes, we watched Greed, unfortunately.
Greed was awesome.
But you can listen
that's
to our podcast on that to hear our opinions on that film. We'll talk more about Eric von Stroheim in a second. But Jean Renoir is, of course, the son of the famous impressionist painter Renoir.
I didn't know that. I'm sure you said that when we talked about his movies before. I just forgot. I don't know a lot about painting.
Okay, well, he's one of the greatest painters of all time, if I do say so myself. I am a big fan of impressionist painting, though, and I can see how it might not be someone's thing. But
I like Catholic guilt paintings.
This is a very interesting movie. It is a early example of a prison break film. It tells the story of World War I French prisoner, a group of World War I French prisoners in a German prison camp, and their attempts to escape, and all the various hijinks that happen along with that. It's an interesting film in terms of its backstory. It was released in 1937, won the Venice Film Festival, and Goebbels declared it a public enemy and banned it.
Yep.
So did Italy. And it was lost for a great many years. It was in Paris, and the original negative was eventually transferred to Berlin, and then the Russians captured it, and then it was sent back to France, but they didn't know what they had. And so eventually, 80 years later, there was a restoration of the original negative, which is crispy for an old 30s film, and that's probably what we watched today. So, Chandler, what did we think of Jean Renoir's The Grand Illusion?
In regards to his backstory, you also forgot a key component.
Yes.
Is that in the early 80s, the film negative found its way onto Jonathan Criterion's desk.
Mr.
He picked it up and he
Mr.
thought
KJ Criterion's desk.
Kiefer Criterion himself picked up the negative and thought there should be a boutique version of this for home release.
There should be a boutique version of this and other classics
And
of world
Godzilla.
cinema.
So he made So he made the Criterion company, and this was its first release.
Is it
Spine
true
number
that
one?
Sorry, is
Spine
it true
number
that
one.
it is also the first laser disc?
The first Laserdisc? I do not know.
Because
I don't
it
know
is
that
the
history.
first DVD release, and technically the first spine number of the modern Criterion collection.
Oh, interesting. Okay, maybe not.
But
then.
But I do know that Mr. the Great Honorable Criterion,
Kiefer Criterion.
Kiefer Criterion,
John Doe Criterion.
started well before doing laser discs. That's where they started.
I also learned recently
Are the laser
that-
discs not a part of the spine number?
I don't think they are,
Interesting.
because there is a Blade
What's that?
Runner Criterion on Laserdisc.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Either way, it is the first the first laser disc too.
Oh, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
One more
I
slight
think that
tangent.
there is I think that it's well worth it to see it on
Laserdisc.
to be the first one. I think that
Search
I think
out
that
the
it,
Laserdisc version.
I would like the Laserdisc version. I do believe it is well worth being the first one.
I also learned recently that Criterion invented the director commentary with King
Do you know
Kong.
that they
King
also
Kong was the
invented
first ever
cinema?
recorded commentary track.
There you go.
There you go.
You know, Criterion is a everyday kind of thing for us, but they're part of history. They're going to be teaching Criterion in film history classes in like 20 years from now.
You know, I actually Mr. Keither Criterion came to a film class of mine once. He didn't really do much. He just made some really pompous statements and then barged out of the class, but that's fine. It was kind of cool to see him anyways.
Kind of a genius. He thought, how could I milk the most money out of the least amount of people? Yes, the film nerd who wants the best transfer of Chungking Express.
He's in front of the investors and is like, get this, we're about to make $3 trillion off of 100 people.
I found this dumpster fire of a silent
There's no telling
film.
how much money they'll pay for chunking.
I found this film called Greed in the dumpster behind the Universal parking lot, and I'm going to turn this into a boutique Blu-ray and sell it for $40 to nerds. And they're going to pretend to like it.
You know what? We can even pretend that it's gone out of print, and then we can sell them the same shit a couple years later.
We make some fake accounts on eBay and have them put them up there for $500 and just rake it in.
Not based.
Actually, that's a great business plan.
Not based. Yes, Grand Illusion. You know what? Other Chandler, you go first because you have a very strong opinion about this movie. Because when he said that, when we talked about getting him on for another episode, I gave him a list of movies that we're about to watch, and by far this is the one he was most excited for.
I did use all caps for this one.
He did.
Wow.
Every single one.
This is one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever seen. It is not only beautiful in image, but also in spirit. Not just in writing and character, but in spirit. Jean Renoir enacts this very deep and personal and very genuine experience with war onto camera, and shows, I think, maybe what would only exist at this time, maybe not as of recently, had the ability to help us empathize with not just our side, but also the people who we fight, who, although may fight for bad people, may just happen to be good people who, of course, just by simple circumstance, end up where they are.
It's very important to make the distinction that this is World War I, not II.
World War I. Please don't cancel me yet.
Much easier to be a sympathetic German character in World War I.
Canceled. Chandler, do you have the boot? Can you boot him out of the call?
God damn.
Cancel hammer.
Yes, and so that's why I said for the time, like this was the last time probably that you could show that before modern warfare with World War II. But of course,
which is important. It kind of got in there under the gun there.
It did. It really did. World War I was one of the strangest gentleman wars to ever exist.
World War II is infinitely interesting, but there's just something so mysterious and special about World War I.
Romantic. Of course, it's still one of the worst grotesque wars. It's terrible.
World War I holds up.
Vietnam's kind of getting stale. I'm kind of done with the War of 1812. That was whatever.
War on drugs.
But man, World War I.
World War
The
One.
Korean War kind of dead on arrival.
I've been
Oh, totally.
That's the one I've been most fascinated with. World War One, just
The
in
Korean
general.
War? Oh, World
No,
War
the
One,
World
yeah.
War One. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and read books about World War One, which is also why I'm a much harsher critic of 1917 than most people. But
if if World War II is like a horror film, it's like a
Yep.
then World War One is a tragedy. It's a
Yeah,
good old like Greek tragedy of a war.
it is. And like Europe is the tragic character.
I kept forgetting that it was a movie that was supposed to take place during World War One because it feels so very much engrossed in World War II to me, just because of the time it was made and the look of it. And there's also like a
Yeah.
moment that is, I'm almost convinced that Casablanca it was a nod to it, where they bust out
Probably.
singing the French national anthem.
I mean, if you've seen the Great Escape, the Great Escape most certainly references Grand Illusion.
Yes, my one sentence review of Grand Illusion is The Great Escape, but good.
Ooh.
So you liked it. Like what do you think?
Yeah.
Chandler?
Where
I'm
do you come in
curious.
at this West Coast,
It's-
Chandler?
It's pretty good. I don't think I'm as into it as you two are. I like it a lot.
Okay.
The only issue I really have is I feel like everything after the I think my main issue with it is that it's very much it's a war film that never shows a battle, never shows the war. The war is in the background, the war is it's in the air. And it's more to do with class, because it's observations on class through the lens of war, where class doesn't really matter, but it also does, because in this world, class matters more than like country or nationalism. Class is eternal. It transcends conflicts, politics, that sort of thing. But I feel like these were observations and not proclamations. I felt like the class stuff, for me personally, it never went deep enough to where I felt like it had something to say about it. And then everything after the captain dies, I find to be kind of disconnected in a way. Like the entirety of them escaping and then holding up in the cabin, to me, just doesn't feel like the same movie. It's not nearly as good.
It is strangely paced, or at least the
Yes.
construction of the film is certainly not quite like anything. The way it funnels down almost, like
Yeah.
it starts out quite big in this big
Yes.
prison camp, and then they go to a smaller prison camp, and then the very end is very much stripped down in the snow.
Yeah.
It is. I can see where someone might think various, like, it doesn't work for you 100%.
Right.
And the ending,
Mhm.
it's interesting. I'm not sure what to
We'll
make
get
of
to
it.
that, I'm sure.
Although I do really like it.
But definitely it feels very much like at the very beginning of the film, it is true. Like you get like the most characters, and it gets even bigger when you get to the prison. But then, yeah, definitely, like, it's a very interesting mechanic to have the cast and the general ensemble slowly shrink over time.
But I like that too.
And it was good. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Here's an interesting comparison. It's kind of like Skyfall. Like, it boils down to
we would not
the
have
ending.
Skyfall if not for the Grand Illusion.
Yes, that is you can trace the direct lineage of Grand Illusion to Skyfall.
I wish. But I definitely do have definitely some qualms, obviously, with it, and what you're talking about with like class and whatnot. This film is very much a class of a movie of upper class, and again, like definitely talking about how like World War I wasn't that great. Is the story we were given was very much a story entitled to a more entitled class.
Mhm.
You know, these were not soldiers who were fighting in the trenches. These were the airmen, the corporals, the commanders who weren't getting, mustard gassed. But I still...
It's very bittersweet in that respect.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much a eulogy for that class and that privilege. It's
Mm.
a eulogy for privilege, and I'm not sure it's necessarily exalting that or putting it down, but it is, saying like this kind of um, the class and the privileges that is afforded with it in war. It's, it's dying.
Especially
Right.
at the end when they're talking about escaping, and the smaller Jewish guys like, well, if we go back, we're just going to be
Rosenthal.
sent straight back to battle. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
in regards to being right before World War II, I find it funny that I don't think the French guy is full anti-Semite, but he does like make jabs at him for being Jewish, which I find funny,
Yes.
especially at this
that was
time.
interesting. There was still like there was there were moments of anti-Semitism with Rothschild, I
Mhm.
believe.
Rosenthal.
Rosenthal, yeah.
Rosenthal. There you go, Rosenthal.
Yeah.
Because I mean I think that really acts as an interesting historical context because anti-Semitism existed in Europe well before World War II. It was nothing new to Hitler.
Hitler invented anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
He also invented the Dutch angle.
Oh, of course. There they call it the Danish angle.
But yeah, I mean it's interesting that we can so easily bring up Rosenthal cuz all the characters are really amazing.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you really do love all of them.
My favorite is the vaudeville guy.
Oh yeah,
Love his
the
performance.
theater director.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Him and the captain.
It's interesting. We reviewed actually we reviewed it a long time ago, and I only just got around to editing it, so it seemed not too long ago. The Seventh Seal, which I would draw a comparison to that in that these are films that are very much a part of film history. They're old and they have kind of a austerity to them, a kind of expectation of like great movies, quote unquote, whatever that is. And you almost like you go into them, and particularly we mentioned this in our Seventh Seal review, and you think they're going to be this kind of dour, serious affair. And what ends up happening is that they're very light on their feet, and almost you don't expect how fun a film this old can be.
Right.
And The Grand Illusion is it's a fun, lighthearted movie, and it is surprising. Like I think it's probably the pinnacle of French filmmaking for me, of like early classic examples of French filmmaking that went on to inspire other filmmakers because of how easy it is to access it still today.
Totally.
And it's because of the characters, how much fun they are.
Yeah. It feels like a movie much younger than it is. It's surprising with how it takes these very, very sad themes, but gives it to you in such a light and interesting way. And I believe that's what helps us empathize with it better.
That's one thing
it's not like
French
these
are good at.
Yeah. It's not these super melodramatic beings where it's like, my whole existence is sadness and I can't handle it. It's people who are struggling with it, and how a lot of people get through that, how almost everybody does, is through a little humor, a little lightheartedness. Everybody's had trouble. Even if it's not in the war, they've all come from some form of struggle, and so to see that from a bit more natural characters is really nice.
Compte de tennis, ça joue au tennis. Un camp de prisonniers, ça sert à s'évader.
Je suis désolé de vous voir ici.
A lot of theatricality in these performances, especially like Eric von Stroheim in this movie. I think he's pretty great.
He, really great actor, and it's funny that he's a German. He was born in Vienna, Austria, except he barely spoke any German, so he had to like learn his lines in like essentially a different language. and still does absolutely phenomenal
What
job. Particularly like later on in the film, the facial expressions he has. We mentioned earlier how like there's subtle anti-Semitism throughout the film, and there's a great little exchange where was it Captain Balduo? Terrible in French pronunciation. I'm sorry to all our French listeners. That's probably who's disliking our stuff. But he von Stroheim's character doesn't search the French officer's area.
Yeah.
And the French officer's like, their word is as good as ours. And von Stroheim just gives like a little eyebrow raise. He's like, maybe.
Well, another thing,
great little acting there.
One thing I find interesting, and because these world wars specifically, they feel like it's the center of the world, and I love how all these actors are constantly shifting their language. Like especially the captain in Stroheim,
English and French and German,
German, French. All of them. You never know when in the end when they're in that German woman's house, and essentially the smaller Frenchman has to translate between the two, and there's like this feeling of kinship between the French woman or the French man and the German woman, despite them not really knowing each other. They're kind of brought together by their familiarity with each other's classes. And I think my favorite moment in the movie is just when they're finally finishing the hole that they're digging in their room, and then they have to switch camps. Yep. But the French pilot tries desperately to tell the Englishman about the hole under their cell.
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, don't speak any French, I'm afraid." And it keeps moving. It's just a beautiful little moment. Ugh.
Yeah, I love the sort of chipper English officer. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But that's another thing.
What's that, old chap? I can't understand French.
These weird
the structure. It's so weird because I feel like the first act is in that first prison, and then they just get moved for no reason.
Second act to the castle. Yep. And
then the third act is just. I guess you could say the third act is when they escape, but I feel like after
maybe.
It's weird because I feel like the climax of the movie is the officer getting shot and killed. But then there's like a good 30 minutes after that where they're just kind of escaping, and then they go to a house, and the only real tension is that a German soldier shows up for a little bit and then leaves, and then they leave, and then it's over.
You might say that the opening part of the film in the first prison camp is about camaraderie. It's about the ties that bind everyone, regardless of class and stature, and how everyone's getting along.
Yep.
And that the second part in the second camp in the castle is about much more clearly about class and the differences between Balduo and his friendship with the Erich von Stroheim's character.
Yeah.
And then the third act is about love and kind of overcoming those barriers entirely.
And maybe how, and get ready for this, may be pretentious, maybe how the last prison is our minds.
Makes sense. That's great.
But in actual,
they've escaped, but have they really?
Exactly. And how
there was no war.
How the grand illusion, how the grand illusion refers to war, right? War is an illusion. But maybe,
which is interesting. I think the grand illusion can refer to a great many things.
Exactly. And how the last illusion is how war and society and culture and everything is sort of an illusion of itself, where these two are very happy living with this widow, but they know that they can't, right? They know that they simply can't. They can't stay there. They have to go back to France. They have to, or even when the war is over, they can't like really stay there. And so regardless, it's a very sad prison break. It's almost like they wanted to be in that prison, but couldn't be.
Also, at the end of the movie, the boundaries are illusions between countries. They go into Sweden.
The border.
It doesn't look any different. They say, "Oh, the boundaries are invisible."
They suddenly
teleport to
violently transport from Germany.
There's actually a riff in time space near Switzerland that transports you to Sweden.
they step from a Jean Renoir film into an Ingmar Bergman film.
Let's
Space
count
Force.
the illusions.
They can't shoot him because they're in a different director's
Okay.
film.
War is an
Illusions.
illusion.
War.
Class is an
Class.
illusion. Your nation is an illusion.
Nations.
Language is an illusion because the Frenchman and the German woman get along pretty well despite not knowing their languages. I guess he does teach her. Boundaries are illusions.
Freedom is an illusion.
Freedom is an illusion. Lot
Maybe
of
the
illusions.
real grand illusion is Jean Renoir tricking us into thinking this is a good movie.
One note's in. Hey. A film
The illusion of
is an
cinema.
illusion. Yeah,
It is.
it is.
The real grand illusion was the friends we made along the way.
See, okay, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm dogging on it because I do like this movie. All three of these parts of the movie are good. It's just that they don't come together in a way that feels cohesive. But I still do think there's a lot of beauty moment to moment. Great.
I think that cohesion might come to you in subsequent viewings.
Yeah, it might.
Yes.
It might.
Yeah.
I hope.
Great cinematography of hills.
I will say that I think that Renoir isn't necessarily like who we might today call like a beautiful cinematographer, cinematographic
Mhm.
director. Like he's not shooting wide vistas a la John Ford, or he's not putting his actors in the frame like Kurosawa is. But in a way he is. Like I think this is the reason why this is one of the great films of all time, at the very least a great film of history,
Mhm.
is that it is, when you really look at the way that Jean Renoir uses the camera and uses the actors.
Yes.
And like the frame and the setting behind them might not be the prettiest in all of cinema, but every shot is just constantly moving, and he's blocking actors in a way that's interesting and just brings you into the scene, and none of it seems particularly pretentious,
No.
which is great.
And a lot of it is very symbolic. A lot of times you get a lot more of the importance of like symbolism over maybe more standard beauty. I'm thinking of when von Strasshand's character dies. Just like the shot of the cross, or maybe does he not? I forget, but he's just like,
No, he doesn't die.
no,
The French
but,
guy that dies.
It's the French guy that dies, yes, and he's
Yeah.
there with him, and the you see like the cross and many other shots that sort of allude to larger symbolism, and of course that probably comes from his father. It's like impressionistic filmmaking, even.
Very tan Frenchman.
Like
Like the cover almost looks like blackface.
Yeah, they did draw him a little darker.
Strange, but not too bad.
Interesting. My waveform is doing something strange, so hopefully my audio is fine. Sorry, I was distracted by that.
I quite enjoy Eric von Stroheim's chin strap.
Yes,
He's always just like
great costume design.
the man
To the point
has
where
impeccable
I think a lot of
posture.
people know that like character design, even if they don't know like what movie it's from.
Yeah,
It's kind of
Mhm.
famous within like cinema.
Yeah, it became. But oh man, Fresney's and von Stroheim's chemistry in this film was like one of my favorite parts personally. The captain and von Stronheim.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, those
it was-
those two are the best part of the movie.
I think so. They were definitely like the strongest acting.
The vaudeville actor's the best part.
That's true.
And that's
he
so stupid.
he really knew how to sell it.
There's a lot of respect between these two people that don't really know each other.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. They just know, and it's such a beautiful relationship that they have where it's like he wish he wasn't holding him hostage.
They could be friends.
They
if
could
not
be.
for war.
If not for
Well,
the illusion.
another of the great illusions, which we've alluded
Oh,
to one of the
uh-oh.
great illusions is the civility of World War One.
Yes.
Which is so charming and strange at the same time. Like the movie establishes this quite quickly, where the first thing we hear von Stroheim's character say is, if they're officers, invite them to lunch.
Yeah.
And they get there and they're for lunch, and von Stroheim's character, like these are prisoners of war in what is one of the bloodiest wars in all of history. And here they are, and von Stroheim is pulling out the chair for the lieutenant and then for the captain and being very nice. And then later on in the film, they still, like, he's reading out, oh, so you tried to escape through the hamper, you tried to escape through this. He's like, oh, very nice, very nice. You can't do that here, but very nice. I understand.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's very strange how, moments ago, it's like if they meet on the battlefield, these two people are supposed to just absolutely destroy each other, right? Like there's no civility, no reason. When they're in the air, they're going to try and shoot each other down. No mercy. But the second like they're in that situation, they're just like they're just best friends now.
Because the illusion is lifted. War is for the battlefield.
The illusion is there, and it is not there.
Yeah, a lot to think about.
And it is still war. That's the thing. Like the whole film is very much like Arizona Chandler said. It is taking place in World War One, but you don't see a single shot fired
till the end.
You see one shot.
Yes,
or
one
couple.
shot. Literally one shot.
There's
one shot off screen. And some guy's like,
oh no, 2 shots actually.
Stop it.
Yeah, they're like
couple shots.
2
They're in
shots.
Switzerland. Leave them alone.
No battles. As we might expect. And, it's civility in this incredibly brutal time.
Yeah.
And there's this very interesting, like, under the surface conflict that's going on throughout the entire film. And yet there's not really conflict in any of the film.
No, not until the French captain diverts the attention.
Yeah.
And even then it's like, I don't, von Stroheim's character is like, I don't want conflict in the movie. What are you doing?
I'm doing my best to avoid any actual conflict. But it came, and I think that made it more powerful, right? Like
most certainly.
The French captain gave me hardcore Peter Sellers vibes. The French version of the guy from Doctor Strangelove, Mandrake.
Kind of reminds me of David Niven from A Matter of Life and Death, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like a French version of him. But, clearly this is an anti-war film, and I think I would put this at the top, or near the top. And it's interesting. I think this is like the reverse, the negative image of Come and See, where like Come and See is the epitome of like attacking the horror of actual warfare, where it's attacking the methods of war. Yeah.
Right.
And the Grand Illusion is attacking the, like, why are you even fighting in the first place, you dummy? And it's very effective at kind of, it's almost like the argument for the European Union before that was even a thing of like, why can't we be friends? But seriously, guys, chill.
I feel like, one thing that I wish
camaraderie and everything, and
I feel like I wish I would have, when I was watching it, kept the time period in mind. I feel like this is one of those things that once you realize just how much of this is preceding World War II, it becomes much more interesting.
And a response to what is happening in Nazi Germany in the 30s. Very much so. Unfortunately, World War II made this film better, I think, in retrospect. Like it added depth.
It alluded to like, it basically like proved everything that Jean Renoir said right in in the follies that were made.
If the Nazis hated it, it was a good movie.
You kind of gotta like it.
You kind of have to like it.
So do we want to talk about the ending? I know that somebody alluded to the ending before.
It's strange.
Yeah,
it's a weird way to end
I
it.
will make mention quickly that the two things I found a little odd in this viewing. One is when what's the kind of the main guy, Marshall, he's put into solitary confinement after the big show, and it just kind of cuts directly from them singing the Marseillaise to him alone in solitary confinement, and it felt like a big jump, and took me like a few minutes to kind of get back on my feet as to like what was happening.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was put in there for sharing news.
Yeah, didn't he came out and yelled
clear
about the advancement or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of insinuated that he was put in there for starting the whole singing episode, but it wasn't a particularly clear cut.
It'd be one thing if he was the one who started singing and everybody else joined him. But he comes in, shouts about a newspaper, someone else starts singing the French anthem, and then he gets solitary.
And then the other, this isn't necessarily a negative, but it is interesting that this film makes use of the fade as a scene transition, which I have gone on record as not a good idea in general, which I find a bit more acceptable in this film because it is
a little more
so early. I think if you're making a movie past the 50s,
unless you're Ghost Dog,
unless you're Ghost Dog, well, doesn't necessarily use it as a scene transition all the time. True. But the real comment here is that, and this might just be the fact that film editing was still in its early days. Some of the scene, like the fade outs from scenes, happen a little too quickly. Like it needed to be a little like hold for a second and then fade. But sometimes it's like people are getting cut off by a fade.
Yeah, there was a moment towards the end. It was like a sweeping musical cue that literally gets cut mid note. I don't remember what happens. I think it's somewhere in the house. Maybe it's not this movie.
You know what? I know what you're talking about, actually. Yeah. There's sort of
it was weird. It felt like maybe part of the film was just missing. If not, that's a very weird cut.
Yeah. The editing was not the best. That's certain. But
it's only
which I think the editing was pretty great, except periodically.
And it wasn't like a time where like that was super expected or whatnot.
Until that Orson Welles guy fucked it all up.
That asshole.
Until he said, no, unless you make transitions through water, your film is bad.
Every transition has to be unique and some ridiculous effect that takes hours and days and millions of dollars to
every cut signifies a new year in your life, or the movie is bad.
So the ending.
Yeah, it's weird. The ending.
Definitely, very bittersweet, a little anticlimactic, I will admit.
It's I don't know, because it feels like it's going somewhere with the German woman. Yeah. And then their time there ends.
Right.
Pretty unceremoniously.
Yep.
And then they escape.
There was originally going to be a scene after that. If you guys didn't know.
I know of this scene. Do you want to
so originally
tell them what the scene is?
So before they split, they're like, let's meet at X so and so cafe. After such and such time. I forget the exact specifics. And to create which I think would have been an even more ambiguous, interesting ending. Originally, it was going to cut to this cafe, after the war, everything's over. It's that time that they would be there. And both seats at a cafe are empty, implying that neither of them were there. And so now it creates even a really interesting question is did they die? Or was their relationship
the cameraman
an illusion? No. The cameraman, they actually came by 45 minutes later. You were just jumped the gun on that. They were running late.
Renoir showed up late.
Renoir
went to the wrong.
When I read the alternative ending on Wikipedia, the number one source of information. I like that. I almost feel like that's a better ending than what we got.
I mean, of course.
I like that.
I'm sorry, Renoir. but because it does just end. They get to Switzerland, and we're like, woo, they did it.
We did it,
The
guys.
war's over.
They've escaped. They made it out of the Grand Illusion.
Yeah, we did it. Remember when they said, "Hey guys, this is exactly like the Grand Illusion."
Well, I do like that ending part of it. That they stop shooting. Like one guy makes a shot at them, and then his fellow soldier says, "They're in Switzerland now," which nothing has changed aside from the fact that they are over this imaginary boundary, and now the war is canceled.
It's like,
done.
Yeah, I guess they
It's
aren't
over.
our enemy anymore.
That's not the war hill. This is the war hill. We don't shoot
This
over
is
there.
the side we shoot.
This is
Definitely.
war. That's peace. Which I think that's interesting.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. That's Switzerland.
That is very true. Yeah, we're like there. Yeah, like very suddenly, it's like there's just no war now. If at this very exact line,
It's not like there's nobody over there. Nobody would have seen if you would shoot them and bring them over there.
right. So definitely like
It's
the
interesting.
last punchy like satirical punch at that.
Yeah, which is good. Like that is thematically resonant as like a kind of funny little comical.
It's just not
Jab
a very
at, like, the-
cathartic ending.
No, and it's interesting. Like you think about a couple years later, Nazi Germany
Yeah.
and the whole World War II. Like
No.
they
Blurring those
sorry, you
lines.
cross a
Yeah.
border, you're not free yet.
Yeah, no way. They'll hunt you down and they'll find you.
Nazis would have
Um,
chased you to England.
They'll get you.
Oh, they will. They don't care. But yeah, we're obviously like where it obviously wants to end ambiguously. It does so in the ending we get where it's like, okay, what happens? They split and like whatever. I think that it would have been better and still just as ambiguous with the cafe scene and
Yeah.
probably help resonated a little more.
I just keep thinking about Colonel Blimp saying, "War starts at midnight." Oh, you boomer. Imagine if Colonel Blimp, the World War I cinematic universe.
He makes an appearance.
As a
He's
young
in the
man with a
prison.
mustache.
He's the guy that he goes and tells about the tunnel.
A rat.
I'm unaware
no-
of what you're speaking of.
I'll admit that. Oh, I'm just saying, I'll admit these discussions are definitely helping me appreciate some of the nuances a little more. I just feel like my biggest issue is the structure, but maybe it's one of those things that I'll think about, see it again, like it more. Because it's very
actually-
entertaining.
Yes, and it's actually
Yeah.
interesting that this is one of those movies that, unfortunately, the first time I watched it, it was such a moment of catharsis and joy that every single time afterwards, or at least this time, it wasn't quite as good. Not because the quality had changed at all. I wasn't as thrilled
I'm
by
the
watching it
opposite,
for
I
the first
guess.
time.
Yeah, I can see
The-
that.
The Great Escape has similar issues because The Great Escape is also a giant fucking mess, but it's very fun. This is much less of a mess than The Great Escape is. The Great Escape is all over the fucking place.
Right.
But I like it because it's fun. Because Steve McQueen jumps a fence with a motorcycle. It's
Can't go
fun.
wrong
It's
with
a
that.
fun time.
I think that that would definitely have made this film a bit more interesting. A few more explosions. Maybe like a stealth section
Motorcycles.
where where the captain's
want-
like sneaking around the castle and
I want a Grand Budapest Hotel-esque prison escape sequence. A Paddington 2-esque prison escape sequence.
I was
I would think
listing out some of the films that were influenced by the Grand Illusion. I think you could say Grand Budapest Hotel. It would not be surprised if that was something that
I
was
see that.
Grand
inspired.
Budapest Hotel. Yeah, there's a lot of things that happen in this that happen in The Great Escape. Very similar tunnel digging scenes. Also, the little scene where they take dirt out into the exercise
That's
fields and throw it.
Essentially, exactly.
Although In The Great Escape, it's very subtle. They're pouring dirt out their pant legs. In The Grand Illusion, they're just carrying burlap sacks full of dirt.
Yeah, that was my
just goes
favorite.
on to,
The
like,
captain.
No one's taking it very
Everybody
seriously.
else. Yeah, everybody else is like very trying to be like a little sneaky about it, but then the captain literally just like takes out the bag and dumps it out. He's just like.
Now, I think the Grand Illusion is one of those great films that you could pair. Like it could have a great double feature. This one pairs with a bunch of different ones. I think we've mentioned
I
like
can see that.
The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp could be a great like a World War One pairing you could have. You could pair it with The Great Escape. I personally like the double feature of World War One, World War Two, and you have Grand Illusion and Army of Shadows, which begins with a prison break, which is also very interesting. The prison scene in Army of Shadows also has like a lot of, it's like a melting pot of a bunch of different people, and feels kind of similar, but at the same time very different because it's World War One. And if
we're World War One, if we're going off of cinematic expression, that was the quirky war.
Yeah. Well,
World War II is
Grand
not as
Illusion
quirky.
Does a great job of getting not the feeling of World War One, but the gentlemen's, the last of the kind of honorable warfare wars down,
just like Colonel Blimp does.
Army of Shadows just kind of right off the bat says, fuck that honor shit. This is
rat
praise.
war.
Yeah, anything goes.
Yeah,
maybe pair this with the entirety of Band of Brothers.
Oh yeah. Have you seen Band of Brothers, Jacob?
I have not. Heard great things. Clearly,
so good, so good.
So that might be the best World War II. I guess you can't call it a movie; it's a mini series, but it is very good.
Maybe just any sort of cinematic expression of World War II. I think that.
I can't think of anything that I like more. Maybe Come and See.
Right.
Maybe.
Definitely from like one of the best from the Western United States front.
Oh yeah.
Did
you ever see the Pacific?
I've not.
That was essentially the same thing, but in the Pacific theater.
Right, the Pacific one, yeah. That's too bad. We need some more Pacific stuff.
We do.
There's always Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, but
also the one Clint Eastwood did. He made 2 movies.
Pacific.
Clint Eastwood made 2 movies within like 3 or 4 years of each other about the Battle of Iwo Jima. One was from the point of view of the Americans. One was from the point of view of the Japanese.
Letters from Iwo Jima. I've seen one of them.
It was Letters from Iwo Jima and then Gran Torino.
Gran Torino. Wait.
Unforgiven? I thought it was Unforgiven.
The Gran Torino was one of the best. Fuck Band of Brothers. Gran Torino really killed the World War II market with that one.
Gran Torino is not based. Let me tell you.
We could have a whole episode on that one.
But yes, recommend it, Band of Brothers. But the question remains: does it belong on the BFI list?
Yeah.
So yes, of course, Grand Illusion deserves to be here. In fact, I think I would bump it up a few spots if I had the power to do so. But
I am going to, for now, say yes, though it is a very thin yes. Wow. So I'm gonna say like somewhere in the 90s.
Which is, it's fine.
But
hey,
I'll take it.
Here it is a unique film. You don't get many World War One movies. It has something very unique to say theme wise, and I think it communicates that theme very well. It is a great early example of using actors and the camera together and kind of breaking out of the theatrical nature that early cinema had. So
this is not a homework movie.
No.
It may look like a homework movie, but it is fun. It is a fun time.
Yes.
It is a quirky war.
Enjoy it. You would enjoy it amazingly.
Yes.
And also, if you don't like war films, that's fine because it's not It's not
No,
like a
there's
chuddy
no war.
war film
Yeah.
where it's like some dude strapped with grenades and bullet belts. It's
Yeah.
like
No,
we said. I
two
think there's
shots
like
fired.
two shots fired.
Mm-hmm. There's more vaudeville musical numbers than there are battles.
This is true.
More show tunes than bullets.
Wow,
Sing songs, not war.
beautiful.
Literally, what's it good for?
Was macht sie hier?
Français. Französin.